quick recap from last weekend. First, the San Jose State game, sixth win of the year, 1-0 on a goal from Daniel Van Vliet. How did that game play out for you?
Well, it was good to be back home again, and the weather conditions were pretty interesting. It reminded me a lot of what we would get here in early November, and actually reminded me a lot of how things in the Midwest can be sometimes with the wind. And the rain kind of held off, but it was so windy that both teams had to really account for that in tactics. And in the first half, we were able to get on board with a goal from Danny and off a corner kick. We were pretty unfortunate not to get a couple more in the first half. And then when the second half came around, we were basically facing the wind, and that kind of turned the tables a little bit. We wanted to keep the ball on the ground. I think we were successful at times, but not as successful as the standard we wanted to be at for that particular half. But when it's all said and done, I would call it an ugly win, but it's a win. It's a victory, and I think the positive is that the guys are finding ways to win regardless of the situation. And I think that bodes well as we get into the second half of the season.
We mentioned the game-winning goal in that game from Daniel Van Vliet. Second on the team in goals, no starts, sort of like a super sub for you. How has he been equipping himself for your team this year, and what has he added to your offensive dimensions?
Well, Dan comes with a lot of experience, and it was fun to watch him over this last spring because I thought that some things started to come together for him. And so he comes in with a lot of confidence, but to play that role that he's been playing, it takes a very high degree of unselfish play, and I think he's always been the epitome of that. As competitive as he is, he really serves that role very, very well. And that role, I think, for any team is vital because it's very, very difficult for attacking players to play a lot of minutes. And so for us to put in a senior who's as athletic as Danny and now who's in kind of a rich vein of form with his scoring, and to change it up is going to be absolutely vital, and he's already proven that. And there have been many times in games where he didn't score, he's created a lot of chances. So I think that having that extra dimension that we have coming off the bench is served us well now, and I think it's going to serve us well in the second half of the year.
That San Jose State win provided a nice bounce back for your team. Earlier loss to Portland, up in Portland earlier in the week. But you said the team played, quite well against the Pilots. What happened there, and why did the outcome result in a loss for you?
Yeah, it's a funny game with soccer that way, and I was explaining to some of the football guys earlier in this week about that game, and I liken it to amassing a lot of total offense yards, but you throw a couple of pick sixes in your red zone, and the next thing you know, the tables turn and you don't know what happened. And I think that was the case for us. I think that there were a couple plays that our guy, if we could turn back the hands of time, our guys would deal with it differently. But other than that, I thought we really dominated the play. We attacked in all different facets. We had a lot of good attempts on goals. We had a penalty kick called back, but that's going to happen sometimes. But when you look at the statistical side of it, and having possession 60-40, and having the other pieces the way they were statistically, I was pleased with the performance. But the results can be quite cruel, and I think that we're going to get better moving forward on that. And having said that, one of the rules that I've been telling the guys is we want to learn lessons, but not at the expense of results. So that's probably the only negative that comes out of it, that we want to make sure that we do continue to learn, but not at the expense of results. But I think that if I'm comparing that Portland game versus the San Jose State game, I think our Portland game performance was actually better. And if we played like that going forward, I think we're all going to be pleased with the result we're going to get. But it's a funny game. It's one of those weird scenarios where a couple breaks and it's so hard to score in soccer that it can turn the tables. But the guys moved on really well. I think they're in a good place mentally. I love their response to Sunday, and it sets the table going forward. And I think one of the characteristics that has really come to fruition with this team is that they're able to move on, whether it's from a win, which is, we've been, winning pretty comfortably, or one of the 2 losses we've had. The guys have responded, and that type of level-headedness is the trait of a good marathon runner. And I want our guys to really to keep doing that, because when we get into the last half of the season, it's going to be a marathon, and we need to have some gas in the tank for that final kick.
Interesting game coming up here to close the non-conference schedule, home game against Northwest Christian. How did you get that local team on the schedule? How did that come about this year?
Well, first, I want to thank Coach Bentley at Northwest Christian, because we were caught in a bit of a jam. In May and June of this year, we had run into a couple of teams that were on the schedule from back east that got caught in the domino effect of realignment. And all the realignment that happened with the Big East, the new American Athletic Conference, the ACC, and then the trickle-down effect that had happened with the ensuing conference schedules. A lot of those conferences didn't know their schedules until the beginning of July. And then what ended up happening, a lot of those conferences had shortened their non-conference weeks. So we had some shuffling that ended up affecting us. And so we had a team that was going to be in our Henzer Zaire tournament that pulled out in June. And that, oddly enough, that actually happened to a number of teams on the West Coast. San Jose State was another one that kind of got caught in that crossfire, and then we ended up able to play each other this last Sunday. But we ended up having to move what was our game against Seattle U, which was going to be this Friday, and we moved them to our tournament. And so it left us with a hole for this week. And unfortunately, there's only 5 of us in the Northwest, and it was very, very difficult. I was concerned that we wouldn't have a game. And so Coach Bentley was kind enough to make some room in the schedule so that we could at least have a game and go into conference play with some type of game that we can build on. So it was a funny thing that way. And with NCAA Division I men's soccer, every team is allowed a one game that is non-Division I that doesn't count against the RPI, but it does count in your win-loss record. So for us on a statistical side, it doesn't affect us outside the win and loss, of course. But it does give our guys a chance to play, and I know Coach Bentley's guys are excited because it's just down the road there in Eugene. So we're looking forward to it, and we're going to treat it like we treat other matches, and because we know right after that match is conference play, and we want to be in our best foot.
The game against Northwest Christian, last home game in a couple of weeks as you start Pac-12 play on the road in the Bay Area, undefeated at Lorenz Field this year. Could get close to setting a record for consecutive home wins. What's the atmosphere been like out there, and why are your guys playing so well at home?
I think the guys really came up with an initiative to really protect the home turf, and and that was something that they really have done on their own, and they've been able to live up to it. So they've set the bar for themselves, and it's fun to watch that, and it's one thing coaches set goals and we say, okay, guys, you need to get here, but when the players do that on their own initiative, I think that's when it really gets special. So, moving forward, yeah, we want to put out a good performance on Friday and the non-conference on a good note and really provide a springboard for conference play. But we know going into conference play, you need to do well at home because it's tough on the road. And that's what makes this conference so magical because, with the Friday, Sunday games or Thursday, Sunday games, I liken it to how difficult it is when professional teams in Europe are having to go on the road. And, to get a point on the road is a big deal, and I think that in college soccer here in this country, the Pac-12 is very similar. If you can get something on the road, that's good, because it's difficult playing on the road, because it's not a one-game deal. It's a whole trip. And so with that said, you want to make sure that you do protect home turf. So I think the guys have got the right mentality, and they're going to want to do well on Friday.
Thanks, Coach.